Today we're going to talk about strategies to make it easier for you to solve percent word problems. And remember from previous lessons that we are working on, there are several ways you can find a percent of a number, but we're going to focus on using the percent equation. And in case we've forgotten, although we do have notes about it, you take your part and you to find your part, you multiply your percent times your whole number. And take a moment to look at a couple questions about that percent equation and fill in the blanks on your student handout to make sure that you remember a couple of key pieces of information. Hopefully you've taken a moment to fill in those two blanks, and now go check yourself with me. It says to use the percent equation, the percent must be in decimal form. First of all, should be our first blank. And then secondly, you can usually emphasize on the usually. Find the whole amount by looking for what follows the word of. We're normally trying to find the percent of the whole number. Of is a code word for multiplication. We've talked about that as well. So hopefully we remember these pieces of background information. And we can look at our first example where we're going to use annotation in order to figure out which part of our word problem is the percent, which is the whole, and which is the part. And you certainly don't have to do it the way that I do it, but a way that, in order that's made sense to me over the years, is to go through and look at my word problem and find the percent first. Simply because that's normally the one that kind of jumps out at me because it's got a percent symbol in it. So it says a salesman gets to keep 30% of the sales he makes as a commission. How much would he need to sell in order to make $1,000? So remember that when you sell something, part of the reason those car salesmen never leave you alone is because when you're buying stuff from them, they actually get what's called a commission. They get a certain percentage of what they sell, and that's how they get paid. So the more they sell, the more money they make. So this particular salesman gets to keep 30% of his sales as a commission. I don't see another percent in the problem, so that percent, that 30, is going to go right here. Please remember, though, that it does need to be a decimal. I got that by moving my decimal 2 places to the left, in case you've forgotten. Now I'm going to look for my whole number. And it says, salesman gets to keep 30% of the sales he makes. Okay, so that is a possible whole amount. Okay, 30% of the sales he makes as a commission. How much would he need to sell in order to make $1,000? So it looks like, so how much would he need to sell? So how much does he need to sell and 30% of his sales? Okay, so that's representing the same thing. So he gets to keep 30% of his sales. So that means his whole amount, what came after that word of, we don't know what it is. That's what we're trying to figure out. How much would he need to sell? Okay, so I'm going to put an X in the place of my whole number. A salesman gets to keep 30% of the sales he makes as a commission. How much we need to sell in order to make $1,000? Okay, so first of all, $1,000 is the only number that's left in there, so it kind of has to be my part. But it also makes sense if I think about it logically. So he wants to make $1,000, and in order to do that, he's got to actually sell more than $1,000 because he only gets to keep 30% of his sales. So it makes sense that the whole amount would be what his sales are, whereas the part is the amount of money that he would make. So if I were going to set this up as an equation, part equals percent times whole. My part would be 1,000. My percent would be 0.30 because it needs to be in decimal form. And then my whole is the one I'm trying to figure out, so it's going to be times X. And we're going to talk about how to solve it in just a few minutes, but setting it up is usually the hardest part, so we're going to do a couple more examples of just setting up the percent equation. Looking at example number 2. So I want you to actually pause the video for a moment And I want you to take a minute to try to pick out what you think. I want you to write in pencil, first of all, on your student handout. I want you to write in pencil what you think the percent, what you think the whole, and what you think the part would be. You are going to be getting graded on whether or not you do this step, so please make sure to pause the video now, write it in pencil, and then restart the video once you have a guess. Okay, one more time, please make sure that you've got a guess for what is the percent, what is the whole, and what is the part in pencil before you continue. If I'm going through and I am looking at my problem, now what I want you to do is, as I'm going through the problem, pause the video again if you need to, and grab a marker. Because what I would like to see now is you following along with how I annotate the problem, and I want you to annotate whatever I annotate and correct anything that might be wrong. I want to be able to see when you turn in this paper what you originally annotated and what you wrote down in pencil. Then I want you to see what you wrote in marker as you are doing the problem with me. So if you don't have a marker, please pause the video now. I do have a marker though, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to look for my percent. It says a drink called Purple Crush is made by mixing orange drink and grape soda. 8 of the 12 ounces of Purple Crush or orange drink. What percent is orange drink? Okay, so what percent? I don't know what that percent is. That is my missing amount this time. What percent? So this time my percent is going to be an X. So now I need to figure out my whole number. And remember that most of the time I'm looking for the word of. So Purple Crush is made by mixing orange drink and grape soda. 8 of the 12 ounces of Purple Crush. Okay, so the Purple Crush is the combination of both juices together. 8 of the 12 ounces of Purple Crush. Okay, so of, that means it's going to be 12 because that comes after the word of. Finally, my part has to be this 8. 8 of the 12 ounces are orange drink. Okay, so my part has to be 8. Honestly, it's got to be 8 because it's the only number that I have left. So, and it makes sense. What percent is orange drink? So I'm figuring out my part equals my percent times my whole number. So in this case, my part is 8. My percent is my missing number. My whole number is 12. So if I were setting it up, it would be 8 equals, let me scoot it up here just a little bit so it's easier for you to see. So part equals percent times whole. So it's going to be 8, which is my part, equals my mystery percent times 12. And again, we're going to talk in a moment about how to solve that. For example number 3, I want you to do just like what you did before. I want you to pause the video. I want you to try to take a minute to figure out exactly which piece belongs in the percent, the whole, and the part. And I want you to do it in pencil. In order to get full credit, I do expect to see a pencil and marker both on this handout. So hopefully you have gone through and you have a guess for the percent, the whole, and the part. So first of all, the percent is right out here. The height of Manny's lizard model is 35% of the actual height. That's the same thing as 0.35. So that is my percent. I'm looking for my word of to represent my whole amount. The height of Manny's lizard model is 35% of the actual height of the lizard. So it looks like he's got a little model of a lizard that's smaller than the actual lizard. So of the actual height of the lizard. So the actual height of the lizard is the whole amount. And it's saying how high is the actual lizard. So that's the part we're trying to figure out. That's the part that we don't know. Because it says 35% of the actual height. So that tells us it's the whole number. But then if we read the problem further, it doesn't tell us how high the actual lizard is. Instead, that's the question that we're trying to figure out. So the part is that the model is 3 inches high. So if I were going to set up this as an equation, part equals percent times whole. My part is 3. My percent is 0.35. My whole number is x. So now that we have set up all of these percent problems, let's talk about how we would actually solve them. Recall from percent problem number 1 that we had a 0.30. Our whole number was our mystery number we were trying to figure out, and our part was 1,000. So the equation was part equals our percent times our whole. So it was 1,000 is equal to 0.30 times x, or times our whole number. So we're doing 30 times x. In order to be able to solve that equation, we're going to have to cancel out where I have this multiplication. How do I cancel out multiplication? Of course, I divide by 0.30. That's going to cancel and leave me with just an x. If I divide the left-hand side by 0.30, I have to divide the right side by 0.30. So I'm going to do 1,000 divided by 0.30. And I'm going to have to round a little bit. I'm going to get about $3,333.33 if I'm rounding to 2 decimal places, because whenever we're dealing with money, it involves 2 decimal places, so we'll round. My answer makes pretty reasonable sense if you think about it, because he has to sell more than $1,000 in order to make $1,000, and 3,330 is more than $3,000. But I could double check also by going back and making sure that if I do 30% of $3,333.33, that I get $1,000. So I'm going to put in 0.30 times 3333. And yep, I get $999.99.